I'm just going to double check that we are live. Hello, everybody. If you're jumping on, say hello. Got Marilyn and I for the core of what matters, the show bringing you today. Now, I'm going to introduce, I'm just going to double check that we are actually live. Turn this down. There we are. Are we there? I think we're here. And every time I get a notification, it's really loud because it's hooked up to my Bluetooth.
Oh.
Disconnected.
Fancy.
Yeah.
I'm so happy with my
Hi,
phone
Trish.
works.
Hey, Robin. So, the core of what matters. Now, I'm going to introduce you. You're welcome to share this over to your group, Marilyn, while I introduce the show. So we've just gone live into our channel Raw, Real and Amplified. This is the first episode of the show, The Core of What Matters. And I created this because I want to have conversations with extraordinary human beings that have amazing stories, that have taken what's happened to them in their circumstances and really created something that can malleably make a difference in society. And the people that I'm going to be talking to and interviewing and the episodes you're going to see are global. So these people are doing things globally, not just in Brisbane. Hey, Robin. Hey, Trish. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, Marilyn is an extraordinary human being, I think. And she's created Pillars of Respect. Now, that's a group on Facebook that has conversations for love, respect, and connection. And the only way, really, Marilyn, that I can summarize what you're up to is preventing violence on the planet. I know that sounds huge and that sounds really confronting. That's a really big thing to say. But I think what you're creating and the space that you're providing for people is really an access to have conversations from love, to get connected to what really matters. And how do we, it's like starting the exploration for how do we have these conversations where we can respect each other's opinions and have it not affect the ultimate solution or the goal. Does that that's a real summary of what you're up to. No. But that's how I receive what you're up to. Sky, welcome, Sky. We are live. Yeah, Trish is like, yeah, get it, Marilyn.
Hey, Trish. Hey, Sky.
Just let everyone know too, the way that I work on these lives is I love interaction. So if you're jumping on and you're someone who really loves this conversation or you want something to share, I encourage that you write it in the comments. Meryl and I are very, we can talk for hours. It's proven because we did a live together last week? Tuesday night.
This week.
Only Tuesday night. And we talked about shame and we could not stop talking. So today is really going to be about you, Marilyn. And I really do want to get to the core of, where this all started for you. So let's start there. Let's start at the start.
Okay.
Okay.
So where did it all start for me?
Yeah.
Probably the promise of ending all violence in all relationships, in all contexts, came out of a particular personal development course inquiry I did about 3 years ago. But it's been a lifetime of my own personal experiences, from being bullied in junior school and high school, being told I was weird in high school. Then when I was a registered nurse, a Division 1 registered nurse that worked in the public and private hospital system for 10 years. And little things like, because I have a really annoying name, Marilyn, really. I love my parents, but it's mum and dad. There's really, haven't met another Marilyn in my own generation. Most of the Marilyns I know are in their 60s or their 70s. And so the other thing I noticed when I worked in the hospital system, for all these people with all these different backgrounds, who could speak all these different languages, And I'm lucky I happen to speak a second language. So I was aware of the inflections of
Yeah.
how saying someone correctly,
Yeah.
like this little tiny niggly thing called saying a person's name right, gave me the shits when I was next. I was like, how come people can't just take the time to say people's names correctly? So
Yeah.
I make a point of it, and I know I still get people's names wrong, but I do tell them if I've said it correctly. So I used to impress all these cute little grandmothers and grandfathers who came from different backgrounds, the Greek or Italian background, because I used to pronounce their names correctly. And I'm like, how is that a revelation? How
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
in the early like this was in the early sort of 2000s?
Mm.
How is that not just a thing? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
So
and it really bugged me.
yeah, so it's something that stood out for you. And I mean, even what I'm hearing, I want to relate everything back to what you're doing now. I really do,
Mm,
because the core of what actually matters to you and what you're doing right now in your business and in your life is based on the experiences that you had and the things that showed up for you when you were a nurse, when you were younger, where you were bullied in school. So it's like, how did that show up for you is different. And on what I'm hearing, this may be incorrect, but what I'm actually hearing is that it was disrespectful to you that people would mispronounce a name, something so simple.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you were like, why do people do that? And you were like, it makes such a difference when someone can say my name. And it has me
Mm,
feel, honored and appreciated. So how do I have other people get that the small things make the
mm,
biggest difference? Yeah.
mm,
I would love to hear, I would really love, because this is about getting to the core of it, right? I would
yeah.
love to hear an experience that you had that stands out for you as being like a pivotal moment. And I know that we all have these, especially people that are out making a difference. But there is a pivotal moment, and it's like a transition. It's like this: you have this moment, this experience. It can happen because of a circumstance, situation, but sometimes it's merely just like a thought that you're just like, this can't be anymore, and you were like, nah, and something happens, and your whole world blows up. And there could be plenty of these moments, but I want to hear the pivotal moment that's coming to you right now. Something that
Um,
happened.
something that happened that was like, um, before it sort of came to pillars, I was playing with whether or not I was going to do this because being a survivor, I was like, do I really want to go down this rabbit hole?
Mm,
Not healing, but anyway. But the pivotal moment that tipped me over from actually saying yes to the promise of ending like zero deaths from violence in relationships in Australia by 2030 was
yeah,
I was in I went to the Conference for Global Transformation, which is a landmark wisdom worldwide event. It was
yeah,
in Monterey. It was 3 years ago. There was a woman talking, and her promise had been to eliminate murders in Jamaica because Jamaica has got like the highest per capita murder
wow,
rate. And I had no idea, right? I'm sitting in this room with 800 other people going, holy fuck. I
yeah,
had Jamaica. I even have to look where up. I know it's near America, right?
mm,
And I
mm,
do like geography and I do like to travel. We're like, where the hell's that?
mm,
And then she went on to tell us her 20-year story of how she had effectively reduced to zero deaths from murders in 5 prefectures in Jamaica
yeah,
in like, I don't know, 20-year time. And I'm like sitting there going, okay, game on. If she can do it, I can do it
yeah, yeah,
for Australia.
yeah.
This
She
has
made.
got a shift for Australia.
Mm,
And because it was incomprehensible to me before that moment. I'm like going,
yeah, yeah,
how is that even possible? Like who says that for starters? Who says let's just go and end all violence?
That's it.
And have zero but no, and because I'm
Sounds like
surrounded by
a nice dream, you know. It's like, oh yeah,
yeah,
that'd be nice. Yeah.
and then I've had people sort of since I've started saying it a year or two ago, people like, oh, you sound like a politician, and I'm like, do not put me no.
Yeah, category.
Hell no. Not the ones we currently have or the ones we've had before. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I have to dig a bit deeper than that, Marilyn. So, you know, this lady shared that she ended this violence. I wouldn't say it was a culture that she interrupted. She interrupted a violent culture that was happening in one particular area. And you were like, wow, that's possible. Holy moly. Now, you know, you would have heard that and gone, you know, you have just said, I heard that and I went, it's possible for me, I can bring this to Australia. But out of everyone in that room, why was it you that decided that this is what you want to do with your life? How has violence actually affected you in your life personally?
Oh, little things and big things. So, you know, bullying at school. Then, you know, being in abusive relationships with men, because I'm heterosexual and I'm into men. So, and then dealing with violence in the workplace. I'd left jobs because of toxic work environments.
Yeah.
And I just kept seeing stuff that I really did not want to see. I'm like, why am I seeing all this violence in all these different places? How come I'm connected to all these people that tell me about how it occurs in our prison system, how it occurs in our homes, how it occurs in like, and it made me sick to think that if I do nothing but like alter a conversation for one person that prevents it getting to that point, that they don't have to go through not the once but the twice I've been through it in a relationship with a man. And I'm not upset or teary now, but the amount of, you know, it's not to say that it's not there, it's just the amount of work I've done on myself. I just, like, I can't even, it's incomprehensible to me not to do something, and it's unfathomable that it's even, like, every day I read about, you know, because I'm connected with how many women have died from violence, how many children have died from violence, like, all of the connections I have, it's like, and then how many men take their lives because of violence. You know, they commit suicide, or, you know, it's so pervasive. And I'm like, no, this humanity isn't built to be violent towards each other.
No.
We don't come out that way. We don't come out racist or sexist or like feminist, because that's equally got as many bad connotations as sexist. We don't. We just don't.
No, we don't.
We're energetic beings shoved in a body to come back to planet Earth to do some stuff to shoot back out again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, it really does. It's like you have been subjected to violence in your environment, like in your relationships, in your workplace. I don't know if you grew up with it. I know I did. You know, my dad used to drink. And I wouldn't say that he never had like a punch up with my brothers, but there was like so much aggression and rage. And rage was something that I was like, that shouldn't be. People shouldn't get rageful. And so violence for me was like, I couldn't comprehend it either growing up. Even in the workplace too, I am not a stand for violence. I'm like, I have complete compassion for people that get upset, but I'm like, I want to summarize this too. Hey Emma, how you going? Thanks for jumping on. I want to summarize this because violence itself, the term or even the word, it is quite broad. When I speak of violence, I'm not just talking about physical. There is like an emotional harshness when someone is in their rage, and there's that violence. There are different ways that violence can be expressed and received. So I am kind of wanting to get an idea, and I know this is let me just actually say, this is a very intense topic. I'm very clear that anybody watching this is probably going to get reactivated and impacted by their own circumstances or their own experience of violence. That's the first thing I have to acknowledge, is that's why we're having this conversation. And you said it before, it still upsets me, but I have talked about it and I've done so much work on it that now it just drives me. And I used to be the same with suicide. I couldn't talk about it. It used to impact me so much that anytime someone even mentioned that S word, I feel it in my throat and I'd start to choke up and I couldn't talk about it. So now it's like, the more we have these conversations, and if you're watching or you replay and you're like, I can't be with this conversation, it's too much, that's okay. But I really encourage you to come back, have a conversation with myself and Marilyn, get yourself involved with groups like Pillars of Respect, because ignorance is not the answer and suppression is not the answer. Don't suppress yourself or hide from these conversations. Find a way to have them in a safe environment. And I just have to acknowledge too that I absolutely love, Marilyn, that you've come at it from this perspective. Language is key to everything in my universe. And you haven't come at it being like, violence should end. Let's lock everybody away that's being violent. Let's prevent people from being able to express their rage because it's not okay. Instead, you're like, how do we bring love, respect, and connection back into society through conversation? I think that's profound. And I want to know how you got there. I know, even for myself, I've done a lot of work too, and I've been like, that guy should never be in a relationship. And I want to tattoo something on his head that says zone.
Yeah.
And then I think to myself, I have had those moments and I have wanted to really put a huge warning sign out for people that are potentially going to be violent in relationships, that I have experienced have been violent with me. Or manipulative with me, and it's like I have this obligation to warn the universe, and then that's my animalistic instinct, but then my human compassion and my love for that we are not born that way, it resurfaces, and I go, how else can I make a difference here than to segregate this person from society? So we just got Trish. It affects me more than the person in pain. It's a ripple effect through the community. A person in pain becomes frustrated, and that internal pain becomes external and impacts so many people. We've all had those moments, but I see it so differently now. Yeah, Trish, because if we can't have compassion for those really in pain, those inflicting pain. And it's not, and I'm not saying to, this is why I love that you come from conversation, because I'm not saying that their actions are okay and that someone else inflicting violence is appropriate and acceptable. It's not. But I'm like, how do I bring love and compassion to the person who is clearly suffering enough? Yeah.
No.
To not punish them because they're already punishing themselves enough. But I want to know how you got to that stage, right? Because I have my own way that I got here. It took a while. It took a while for me to get to this place because I had a lot of resentment. But I want to know what was the. So you had these really shitty relationships, and you had all this stuff happen, and then you got to this place.
Well, the other thing I haven't said is in my 10 years of nursing, and alongside that career, I had another career where I worked in many different call centers. So I did a brief calculation last year to have a bit of a guess at how many conversations with humans I've had, and I've had a lot. And I was like, ooh, it's in the thousands. Just because I'm a numbers gal. I'm like, hit me up with your digits. I'm all about KPIs. Give me a deadline. Give me some digits.
Yeah.
So I have been the one in pretty much, and look, I put it down to all the personal development I've done and everything else. But in the hospital setting, I was able to calm the angriest person down in the room every time. There were very rare, I can't even think of a single occasion where I couldn't do that. And I was like, not everyone can do this. But it turns out I was wrong. And then the other thing I noticed, so that was in the hospital setting.
Yeah.
When people are in a massive amount of stress, massive, like that whole industry, kudos to my beautiful nursing and medical friends at the moment.
Exactly.
Love you, don't want to be you right now. But then in the call center spectrum, because I've worked in various call centers, different products, and the same frustrations with customers, really they don't vary that much from business to business. And it all comes down to really not being heard. And I noticed that I was really not getting escalation calls, and my colleagues were getting escalation calls all the time. I'd hear them talk to people, and I just wanted to turn around and go, mate, you talk to someone like that, they're not going to respond to you. Give them to me, they'll be eating out of your hand. They'll be best friends with me because it's meeting people where they're at, but more importantly, listening to people. Yes, I could make the two men who have been abusive to me so wrong if I wanted to. And look, I did dally around with revenge for the first one for 5 years, but the latest one, I'm like, there's no point in holding on to this. It's done.
Yeah.
But it's by meeting people where they're at, listening to them and respecting them, it de-escalates things way quicker. And I was like, well, it can be done down here in a conversation. It doesn't have to wait. Because by the time, like with me, in the most recent times, for it to get to violence, it goes through a whole lot of stuff before it gets there.
Yeah, there's a
process. I was just like, I just don't understand why everyone else, like, it's like saying people's names correctly.
Well, let's look at that. Well, I really don't access this. For anyone watching, I really want you to have an access to what has Marilyn be separate from the rest and how she perceives those that are being violent or being rageful. So it's like what has you be different in the workplace as when you're a nurse, you could calm someone down. You could meet them where they were at. You could really hear them and get what they were dealing with. Where did that come from? Where did that attitude come from? I want to know. I want to know what you think it is. Do you think that you have a solid belief or there is a value there that you hold about human beings and humanity? That's what I think it might be, but I want to hear from you. What is it that has, when someone is yelling at you in your face and you go, because I know for me, I stop and I go, this isn't even about me. This isn't personal to me. They might be in my face and I might be experiencing discomfort and no safety, but I know in my logical brain that this is not about me. This person's upset. And this person might be saying that I'm an asshole, but this person's really upset. And instead of honoring the way I feel about how I'm feeling uncomfortable, how I'm feeling, like this, my survival brain is like, get out, run, 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 or freeze. And so, part of my mechanism is just like freeze. So it's like, how do we give other people an access to separating themselves from this hidden threat when someone is being rageful and just really be there listening? What do they need right now? Where did you get that access?
I just feel like I was born with it. It's like a present.
Born with nothing, remember? Just like people aren't born with racism, you're born with nothing, so you develop it somewhere. Is there someone close to you that you grew up with that you watched and you were like, I want to be like them? Or is there something that you saw when you're older and you're like, I don't want to be like that?
I can't recall anything specifically, except that growing up, I was like, I just don't understand why people get angry at each other. And I remember thinking in junior school, when I was bullied in junior school, I didn't really understand why these two other girls were, and I didn't hate them. I didn't enjoy having dirt and stuff thrown in my face or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever happened at that young age. But
look,
I was like, it's just incomprehensible to me, and I don't really have an answer.
Yeah, there might not even be one answer, right? The conversation, I just want to acknowledge something. Sky said, we don't all agree with you that they were born with something. Sky, it was just a play on something that Marilyn said earlier. A joke, by the way. So I do believe that we are born with skills, gifts, talents. And I wanted to point to this because I really want to make a point that you don't have to be born with it. You can't be born with it. I'm just pointing out, Marilyn, that you have this unique gift to bring compassion to any situation. And you've now designed a way to show others how to have that compassion through conversation and violence. I think that's extraordinary. And I'm picking your brain because I want people to see that it's possible for anyone to be able to learn this way of thinking and this way of being with human beings that are reacting, that are upset, especially the ones that you love. But also, if someone is directly being upset with you and being violent, it's like, how do you have compassion? So much compassion, not just for them, but for yourself, that you go, I am not going to tolerate this. So it's like having respect for yourself, having respect for them, and still having the conversation that's connected and loving.
Well, for me, in those conversations, like, you really, what I do is I take the time. You have to take time with people, and you have to give yourself over to the time to be with them where they're at.
Mm.
Because if you don't, that 2-minute angry call to a call center from someone who's disenfranchised because business has let them down again,
Yeah, yeah.
right, can turn into a 10 or a 15 escalation call. It's refraining from arguing with people. It's
Mm.
refraining from coaching people. Like, for me personally, I hate it when people coach me. I don't care if they're family, friends. Like, if I haven't asked you to coach me, don't coach me.
And so,
Don't give me your opinion on my life unless I ask for it implicitly. I don't want it.
yeah,
Unless I'm paying you, I don't want it.
yeah. You're like, I don't
Um,
care. It's plain obvious. Don't tell me. I'll work it out myself. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So for me, the first step is always
Mm.
stopping,
Mm.
and then stopping. I take a breath. Like there was one call last year. I think I was on this phone to this dude for 2.5 hours, and that was one of the worst calls I've had my whole time I've been on phones in my career, of the thousands of people I've spoken to,
Yeah.
because it took that period of time to get this person to a place where they felt heard and respected and listened to, and then that they could actually connect with me so I could connect with them, to speak to them in a language that they understand.
Mm.
So there's the stopping and the listening,
Yeah.
and then there's the stopping and the listening, but active listening, to just get into their world, to not bring anything to it,
Mm.
just to go, there's nothing there except the listening.
Yeah.
And then if you need to explain something, as often I needed to do as a nurse, and
Mm.
often I needed to do with people ringing up with shitty business problems that the business wouldn't fix,
Mm.
because they didn't listen to their customer service staff who were taking on the calls and dealing with all the things, and tell them all the, this is how you could make your business way more efficient really quickly. Um, um, the next step
Yeah.
would be actually giving them an example in a language that they understood. So I'm very good at going. I remember, I think I've spoken to plumbers and builders, and I've spoken to people in all different industries and all different works of life.
Mm.
People going, I don't know how to use a computer.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know how to get on YouTube, right? Right. This is what I used to say to plumbers. You know how to get onto YouTube, right, and download some dodgy videos. You can
Ah.
click a button.
Yeah.
And then going through the process, or going, with medical stuff, I would put it into terms like, oh, you're a builder, right? Okay, so what's happened is this part of your building, the foundations come out, and you got to put the foundation in.
Mm.
And it was picking it all with language,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we don't all speak English for starters,
No.
right? But it's putting it into that language for those people so that they can understand, and that, I
Well,
don't
let's
even
talk about
think
that.
about it. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. It's really important. And this is something that I say that I'm in the work of mastering. Mastering is just something that I focus on a lot. And that is to speak into the listening of others. So how am I, and it's not manipulative, it's so that you can make a difference. And it's not a solution, but it is a way to really get into someone else's world so that they feel heard. And it is a tool. And I can hear that you have the skills in this tool. It's like, how do I communicate to this person so that they hear it on their level in the way that they're used to? My dad's a tradie, right? My dad, he's been a tradie for 30 years and he's a glazier. And so when I have conversations with my dad about love languages, I have to make it funny. And crude. He loves crude humor. And I have to talk about it in a blokey way. And we have amazing conversations. We have conversations about all different types of things. And at first, it was still uncomfortable, right? We know used to those conversations, especially with his daughter. But it was like, it was for me, it was like, how do I change the language, love language? How do I not tell him stuff like, I'm so enlightened today. I've just done a self-pleasure practice and I've rubbed myself with oil and I spoke to the gods and I asked them about intimacy. My dad would not hear that. Most people, by the way, won't hear that. Instead, I meditated today, and something that I really got for myself was I distance myself from people and I feel awkward when people talk about intimacy. My dad would be like, yeah, me too. You know what I mean? So there's a way to change your language and there's a way to speak to people, like you said with the builder, for him to get that things aren't working up here in the business, is that you share with him about the foundation. You speak in his language. Yeah, the foundation of the building, the concrete isn't set. And so anything you put on top of that concrete is probably going to not sit level. And eventually, over time, the concrete not being set, everything that's built on top, all of the other units are going to come crashing down. So let's set the foundation first. So it's like you said, it's about speaking into how that person can hear. And I love that you say that. It is a listening tool. And we're not taught these tools and these skills. But I think they're important. I think conversation and language is important. Just as, and language and speaking and understanding and being able to listen in a way that has other people be heard and responding in a way that has other people feel like what they just said was received. So I think now you can own that that's a skill that you have and you probably don't even know how you do it. I'd say it's just years of accumulated knowledge that you have now, because I think that everything is a transferable skill. I worked in hospitality for 11 years. In hospitality, you have to be very people-pleasing. It's all about how do I make sure that this person is completely looked after and that they don't talk to my manager about me. Or how do I upsell them something without being a slimy salesman? So it's all about how to speak into listening of people so that they like you. And there is a power to that when you transfer that into entrepreneurship. Is like being likable is a huge asset as an entrepreneur. So it's like, I think that these are all just skills that are now transferred into, the difference that you want to make. And not in a slimy way, but coming from intention and purpose. At least that's how I would summarize it. Yeah.
No. And it's using simple examples. It doesn't have to be massive. And usually there would be a gap. At some point, eventually, there would be a gap that I would just be with. And then if I couldn't get if my explanation wasn't working, I'd ask the person what they're passionate about. And everyone says the same things. Family, friends, everyone wants to go on a holiday.
Yeah, pleasure.
Everyone wants to live on it. Not everyone wants to live on a yacht, but and it's getting in using those things. Or going, how to open your fridge door and shut it.
Yeah.
This is how you do it over here with this.
Yeah.
To explain that to make the disconnect connect to that person.
Bridge the gap. So you're in the mastery of bridging the gap in conversation so that people get heard. And that's your unique vision in changing, well, not even changing, ending violence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I didn't expect to say any of those things at all. I'm like, oh.
No, that's what I love about this show. I created the show because, even in this conversation, I get so much about my own purpose. Because mine is, it's really pretty all about mental health and suicide prevention, and specifically with men. And so it's so important to me that these conversations are being had. Yeah. And we've had some amazing comments from Trish. My apologies for not having read everything out. Yeah, but she said, yes, you are, Marilyn. Extraordinary. Extraordinary human being.
Thanks,
Yeah. And I think the importance of what you share is that anybody can do this.
Yeah, and it's for each of us. It's not a singular, I'm holding the promise. Like, I'm giving my life to the promise. But the promise isn't about me. It's nothing to do with me. I'm just the vessel, or the whatever you want to call me.
Yeah.
Because I've got the energy and the time to cause those conversations to happen between all of us.
I think you have the vision, and I don't think one person holds the vision. I think there are a lot of people out there that have moments like you, and they're like, these popcorn moments, and everything adds up, and all of the things that they've learned throughout the years, they would have no idea, have now transitioned into making this huge impact. And then it turns out that their vision is like yours, but they have a different flavor. And you join forces,
So, and all of those people I want in that group, in the Feel the Respect group, every single one, anyone who is interested, it's for all of us.
Yeah, if you're interested in having a conversation to end violence, starting with you, you're starting with how you can bridge the gap with the people in your life, how you can fully hear people and listen so that they feel gotten, and how you can be more connected, loving, and have more respect in conversation. Not to say you don't already, but it's always an exploration. Then you need to join Marilyn's group. I'm unapologetic about that.
Yes, and I welcome you and embrace you with open arms.
Yeah, and Trish says Marilyn has the belief that her vision will become a reality, and I believe in her mission. I do as well, Trish. And, I believe the more that you verbally say things in language and create them, and then have other people that have the same vision that just haven't been voicing it, the more people that you connect through language, then the more it actually is already reality. Because you already are making a difference. So it already is so that you're ending violence. It's not something that's going to happen in 10 years. It's happening right now. Yeah, because of these conversations. Yeah. Oh, juicy stuff. And I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for being someone who's up to this. And it takes courage, it takes guts, and it takes being someone who dedicates their entire life. And sometimes it is so, what is the word? It's like being someone who's up to a journey like this can feel so segregated, because it's like we feel like the burden's on us. We only have this life. What are we going to do with it? And then we find people like Trish who are like, nah, I've got your back. I'm here. We find people like Sky, and we find people like Emma, and we find people, whoever else, Robin. We find these people that believe in us, and we join forces and we take over the world. And it doesn't become so daunting, but it really does actually take something. And it never stops taking something. So I just want to acknowledge you for being that person.
Thanks, Emily. And
You're
I'm
welcome.
obsessed with it. I just want to. I don't want to even. I don't want to have anyone ever experience it ever. I don't want to ever experience it again in my life, let alone anyone else.
Me either. Yeah.
I don't care what part of the planet they're on. It's over for me. It
Yeah.
can't go on.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same. I definitely feel the same. So, with that notion, I just want to wrap up um, and quickly just summarize. We summarized a lot, you know, and we gave an access. If you're replaying this, then just know that even you being a part of this conversation, if you're not commenting, it's fine. If you're watching this and you're soaking up the information, then you are making a difference to this as well. You're like actively being someone who wants to impact how you show up in the world. So I just, really commemorate those people as well that might not have the courage right now to have the voice that we have, but they're like going to work on themselves first. So anything else you want to say, Marilyn, before we close up?
Really, just thanks for having me on, Emily, and for anyone out there who wants to be a part of the conversation, come and join the Pillars of Respect group, and let's all end violence in all relationships in Australia, ASAP, and around the world.
For sure. Can you please drop a link in the comments on my life so that anyone just has direct access to the group? Okay, great. This show pretty much is on air once a week minimum, with all different people that have all different extraordinary conversations. So keep an eye out for, we have 3 conversations next week with 3 different extraordinary ladies. So this is the first one, and we kicked it off amazingly. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, everyone. Thank you mostly, Trish. Trish, you're incredible. You're like the partner in crime. I love it. I appreciate you all, and have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend.